Hey, and welcome to another week of Access Online. I hope you all are doing well, and I hope that last week's video was both encouraging and challenging to you all. But as we continue on with our goals lesson series, I do want to offer up another challenge. And this one actually has a prize attached. You're going to have to wait till the end of this video for the specifics on this, but the first few people who do this rather easy thing are going to win a special lunch delivery from me. That is, you tell me what your favorite restaurant around the area is, and I'll deliver you some food within reason, of course. So make sure you stick around for that, but also here is a reminder that it is time to actually start thinking about summer camp. I know it has been a weird year with all of these cancellations, and last summer camp that really didn't function like it normally would, but we're still going to promote camp, and we still hope to be able to bus all of you to camp, or at least those of you who would like to attend summer camp. So we're going to send out an email with the details on that, but if you've got any questions about summer camp or how to sign up or when or what week we're planning on going to do that, get in contact with either me or with Sarah. But that's enough of this. It's time to officially start our lesson. So grab your Bible, text a friend, grab a snack if you need to, and prepare yourself for Access Online Week 33. Now that my wife and I have an almost 8-month-old, we spend a lot more time watching movies meant for kids than we have ever done before. Moana is on repeat. And I think that we have seen just about every single animated Disney and Pixar movie that's on the Disney Plus app. But there's this one kids movie, it's on Netflix actually, that I recently rewatched, and I'd like to talk about that for a second. It's a movie called The Little Prince, and it's very, very loosely based on a book by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry of the same title, The Little Prince. And it's all about the importance of imagination and innocence and love in both an unhealthy and in an unhealthy sense. And I won't talk too much about this movie or that book, though, just in case I accidentally spoil it for those of you who might want to go and watch the movie or read the book if you haven't. But I do want to mention one quote from the Little Prince book that I think is both relevant and really important in relation to what we have been talking about. Here's the quote: "A goal without a plan is just a wish. A goal without a plan is just a wish." And if you know a bit of the background of the author, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, you know that he is a guy who must have known a lot about planning because he actually accomplished quite a bit in his life. He was both a writer and a published poet. He was a professional journalist. He was a commercial pilot and even later flew reconnaissance missions as a spy for the French Air Force during World War II. Was he lucky? Was he exceptionally talented and extra smart? Sure. But he also knew the power of a well-executed plan. He knew how to set goals, and because of that, he was able to accomplish a great deal. Last week, we talked about goal setting, and we talked about New Year's resolutions. Well, what is one of your plan-worthy goals that you came up with? Well, while some of us may be more naturally talented than others in certain areas, we are all capable of doing big things, whether it's the ability or just the desire to learn a new skill or a new hobby, or whether it's accomplishing some other things that are important to us. God gives all of us the ability to solve problems, and He gives all of us the ability to make things happen. But to accomplish anything, we usually need a plan. So what's a goal that wouldn't be possible without a plan, right? You might have set for yourself this year, you might have set for yourself a spiritual goal, like spending time reading God's Word or praying more regularly. You might have set for yourself a physical goal, like trying a new outdoor activity or getting stronger or faster. You might have set for yourself a mental goal, like learning something new, or you might have set for yourself a relational goal, like being a better friend or being a better family member. Or you even might have taken up that goal that we suggested last week, our challenge to stick with us and be engaged even in this online access format. And these are all good goals. But without a plan, they're just wishful thinking. Last week, we also began talking about the story of Nehemiah. And if you remember, Nehemiah is both the name of a person and the name of a book found in the Old Testament portion of our Bible. And in his story, it takes place about 140 years or so after the destruction of Jerusalem by the Babylonians. 140 years before Nehemiah, Babylon rolled into the southern kingdom of Israel and they burnt it to the ground. They destroyed God's temple. They ransacked houses and they took people as slaves. They sent many people into exile in foreign lands and they severely damaged the walls of Jerusalem. And this all happened because of Israel's disobedience. Israel had sinned by not following Torah law. They weren't caring for their neighbors, so they weren't caring for the poor and the marginalized in their communities. They weren't listening to God's prophets, so God Himself raised up Babylonians for their judgment. But, and despite this, God promised His people that He would one day bring them restoration. He promised that He would allow His people to return back to their homeland someday in the future. And Nehemiah is the beginning of the story of that restoration and of that return. When the book of Nehemiah begins, some of God's people had already returned back to Jerusalem, and they were looking for ways to rebuild what they had lost, but it was a long process. And living in Persia, Nehemiah was also passionate about seeing Jerusalem restored too, but he saw one big problem. Although some of God's people were living in Jerusalem already, the city walls were still in shambles. Without walls, God's people would be totally vulnerable to another big attack. Leaving the walls in such a ruined state would also be dishonorable to the Lord too, and rebuilding them would be a sign that Israel was returning to God and choosing to be obedient to Him again, inspired by His love for the people and His love for God. Nehemiah set that God-sized goal. He was going to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Nehemiah had a goal. But what about a plan? The first thing that Nehemiah did was spend time in prayer. He fasted and prayed before the Lord. And this is actually a part of the passage that we talked about last week, but I want to reread at least a portion of it again. So this is Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 4, and then verse 11. It says, "When I heard these things, I sat down and I wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of this your servant and to the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man," talking about the king of Persia. I want you all to notice a few things with me from this passage. First, Nehemiah did not ask God for a step-by-step instruction on how to accomplish the rebuilding of the city walls. He already knew that God wanted him to lead the charge on this rebuild, and that knowledge was enough for him. He didn't say, I'll just sit here and just wait a while until you tell me what to do, God. No, he immediately started planning. And by the time he reached the end of this praying and fasting period, Nehemiah was already working on that plan. He had a plan in mind. And he asked God to help him with this. He asked God to help him in the success of using the resources that he had been blessed with to see it accomplished. Because his job was to be a cupbearer to the king of Persia, Nehemiah knew that he had influence. So he planned while he prayed, asking God to bless his efforts and to stop whatever wouldn't be God's will. Here's also Nehemiah chapter 2, verses 1 through 9. In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought before him, I, Nehemiah, took the wine and gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before, so the king asked me, "Why does your face look so sad when you are not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of heart." I was very much afraid, but I said to the king, "May the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire?" The king said to me, "What is it you want?" Then I prayed to the God of heaven, and I answered the king, "If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city of Judah, where my ancestors are buried, so that I can rebuild it." Then the king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked me, "How long will your journey take, and when will you get back?" It pleased the king to send me, so I set a time. I also said to him, "If it pleases the king, may I have letters to the governors of Trans-Euphrates, so that they will provide me safe conduct until I arrive in Judah. And may I have a letter to Asaph, keeper of the royal park, so he will give me timber to make beams for the gates of the citadel by the temple, and for the city wall, and for the residence I will occupy." And because the gracious hand of my God was on me, the king granted my requests. So I went to the governors of the Trans-Euphrates and gave them the king's letters. The king had also sent army officers and cavalry with me. In these verses, we discover that Nehemiah hadn't just been praying and casually planning. No, he had also been preparing in great detail. The king asked Nehemiah why he looked sad, and he had an answer prepared. The king asked what Nehemiah wanted, and he had a request prepared. The king wanted to know how long Nehemiah's journey would take, and he had a timeline prepared. And since the king seemed pretty open to his ideas, Nehemiah also had a lot of requests prepared. Through this process, Nehemiah continued to talk to God in prayer, but he didn't wait for God to do all of that work for him. He used the strategic mind that God gave him to plan and to prepare while waiting for that right opportunity. And because Nehemiah prepared in detail for the opportunity that he hoped he would get, when God did arrange that perfect moment, Nehemiah was fully ready to take advantage of it. Nehemiah, he prepared while he planned. God gave Nehemiah a huge task. He was to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. But God also gave Nehemiah everything he needed to make it happen. Nehemiah had access to God through prayer. He had his God-given talents, his abilities, his passions. He had resources and opportunities and connections, all these things God gave him. And he had other people there to help him too. Although Nehemiah's God-sized goal, it probably scared him and overwhelmed him sometimes. Nehemiah, he didn't let any of that stop him or make him give up. He didn't wait for somebody else to take that mantle from him. No, Nehemiah made a plan. And although Nehemiah's goal was extraordinary, he understood the tools that he would need to accomplish this goal were ordinary and already available to him. Nehemiah, he took that vision that God had given him, the skills that God had given him, and the resources that God had given him, and he got to work. Nehemiah trusted that accomplishing God-sized goals was exactly what he was made to do. And just like Nehemiah, you are designed for God-sized goals too. I want you to think about one goal that you have achieved in your life. You got one in mind? I don't know how you achieved that goal, and I really don't even know what that goal is. But here is what I do know. You were able to achieve it because God designed you to do it. You have a brain that can strategize. You have people in your life who can help you, and you have skills and resources available to you that you can use to see your goals accomplished. And I'm not sure what you think about God right now, and I'm also not sure if you actually have any big God-sized goals in mind right now. And that's okay. Any of that's okay. What I want to say can still help you see your goals accomplished, whatever size they might be. And if your goals are all about what you want to achieve for yourself, the story of Nehemiah can offer you up some important wisdom that will help you achieve any of that too. But I do want to challenge you to think bigger than that. God designed you to do big things, and even bigger things than getting into the college that you might want to get into, or making the soccer team, which you so dream or desire. Chase after your goals, but don't settle for goals that only benefit you. Try asking God what else you might be designed to do, because God has big plans for you, God-sized plans. You, like Nehemiah, are designed for God-sized goals. So, what do you think that God might be leading you to do right now? In the beginning of this video, I promised all of you a way to win free lunch. If you are one of the first few people who take up my challenge, I will personally deliver food to you. So here's how you can make that happen. Ready? I want to know what God has been putting on your heart. I want to know what your God-sized goal might be. What are you challenging yourself with this year? What goal do you have in mind? It can be a big thing. It can be a little thing. It can be something that you do for yourself totally, or it can be something that you want to do for somebody else. But what is your goal? Let me know by emailing me or texting me or commenting on this YouTube video or Facebooking me or messaging me on Instagram. You, like Nehemiah, are designed for God-sized goals. And I really want to know what God is leading you to accomplish.